Well, thank you. And there's somebody that got missed in all of those thanks. Jen Palka. This event would not have occurred. Look at the tribe, look at the community that she's created. So let's just take a moment and say thanks to Jen. And so I'm just so deeply appreciative to be here. I've got a few words to share with you about my son, Jake Brewer. And I do this because Jake, he was one of you. I often think of him as a fervent geek. And he had almost like a religious belief in the power of technology and what it really takes to build a better democracy. I'll never forget when he came home from an event called Code for America, and there was this thing on his computer, and I asked him about it. And he said, "Oh, Mom, there's this woman. Her name is Jen Palka. You have got to meet her." And so we did. He just loved you, and he always spoke with you about you lovingly and often. And this community was just so important to Jake. His magic, really, was bringing people together who otherwise would never choose to be together. He knew that if you brought the right people into the right spaces at the right time, magic would happen. And if you needed 2 days of evidence of that, here it is. I just was amazed at what took place over the last couple of days. Then 1 year, 1 month, 15 days ago, in about 2 hours, Jake died in a cycling accident. I wake up and I carry that with me every single day. But I'm here because just being surrounded by Jake's people, that means all of you, it gives me great hope, and it also gives me great courage. And it's incredibly inspiring to see the work, to see the energy and the creativity that drives this community. These are projects that he cared deeply about. The one that we just heard about was something that, if he were here, and he kind of is, he would just be so amazed and so thrilled where it is now. But I'm also here because each of you is building a legacy. Now, I'm not talking about a career. I am not talking about your assets or your portfolios. I'm not talking about all those great contacts you made the last couple of days. I don't mean successful product launches. I'm not talking about cool nonprofits. Not even talking about Silicon Valley IPOs. A legacy is the enduring truth about your life. It's the essential thing that your friends, your family, your kids will say about you without any hesitation years after you're gone. Jake was 34 when he was killed on his bike, cycling for a charity fundraiser. Anybody in here under 40? Anybody in here 34? So do I think Jake was really thinking about his legacy that day when he was on his bike? Maybe, probably not. And it's really a good chance that you're not thinking about your legacy right now either. Well, of course not, because we have a tendency to think that we have all the time in the world. A few days after Jake died, I went to the White House, where he was serving as senior technology advisor, to meet with his team and to gather some of his things. And I looked up, and there was well, first of all, the offices are a cluttered mess. They're like really chaotic. I'm sorry, Aiden, I think you're in the room, and I think I'm glad DJ's not here. I'm sure you're not used to those kinds of offices in the world of tech. But I went to his computer monitor and took a look at it. There was a bottle of bourbon next to it, by the way. And on the monitor, I found this Post-it note. And it says, "Cultivate the Karass." I'm like, what is that? What does that mean? And so while I was standing there, one of his colleagues, I think Matthew McAllister, I don't know if Matthew, if you're still here, so we looked it up, and it turns out that Karass is a completely made-up word. It was made up by Kurt Vonnegut. And go ahead and go to the next slide. So Karass means a spontaneously forming group joined by unpredictable links that actually get stuff done. a network of people that does God's will without ever really knowing it. And I thought, wow, that is really Jake. So in the months following his death, I've met with hundreds of people, his friends, his colleagues, his collaborators. And as I hear them talk about Jake, I've gradually come to understand that his particular legacy, the truth people unhesitatingly talk about him, is actually a paradox. Jake was both a tech evangelist, but he also knew that at the end of the day, technology is not the answer, at least not the singular answer. It won't heal our politics. It won't end inequality. It is certainly not helping us become less self-absorbed. And given the nature of our election season, it is not helping us overcome the tendency to hang out with people and to listen to media that already confirms our bias. Jake believed that technology could never substitute for the awkward, the desperately difficult, exasperating job of truly understanding another person. And he went to amazing lengths to make sure that he truly connected with people outside of his world. He did not just talk about it, Jake did it. There was a time when he spent 4 days living as a homeless person on the streets of DC in the winter. He did that so he would know what it was like to be unhoused. He traveled with me to the Middle East, and we spent time interviewing Muslim men and women, people from places like the UAE, from Egypt, Jordan, Syria. He wanted to hear the Palestinian story firsthand and to know what their daily experience was really like. When he learned that one of his closest friends was an undocumented immigrant, he helped found a nonprofit that you may have heard of called Define American. The whole idea was to humanize the conversation about immigration and what it means to be a U.S. citizen. And by God, people, we gotta want it a whole lot worse than we're wanting it right now. And although he was unapologetically progressive in his politics, Jake married and built a family with a brilliant and equally unapologetic conservative woman, Mary Catherine Ham. Jake loved bringing people together who would otherwise never be seen in the same room together. So for Jake, Cultivate the Karass meant systematically helping people across all sorts of boundaries to do God's work. That means being able to understand, to engage, even defend opposing points of view. And it meant giving of his time generously, usually anonymously, so that others could succeed. Now, I don't pretend to know your definition of God's work. I mean, you may not believe in God at all. But I know that if you are in this room today, you certainly have a burning desire to do and achieve great things for the common good. And your best way of doing that is working at this intersection of government innovation, civic tech, and using technology and entrepreneurship. Making it a point to understand people along the way, especially those you disagree with. My hope is that you'll continue to harness technology and build amazing things for the benefit of all of us. I hope you'll prove skeptics wrong. But above all, I hope you'll find and cultivate a Karass, the network of relationships that will capture your spirit and perpetuate this work for a very, very long time to come. So from Jake and me to all of you, how do we make this happen? Thank you. Thank you.